Because they were talking about Jeremiah being alive at the same time as King Josiah and the revival that happened in Israel. So if you do want to follow along with this, I'm going to be in 2 Chronicles chapter 35. I just wanted to add some context to this as we go into some pretty thick language of Jeremiah. Some pretty big words we're going to hit in chapter 3 there. But if we go to chapter 35, verse 16. So let's see here. That's it, yep. So all the service of the Lord was prepared that day to keep the Passover, to offer burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord, according to the command of King Josiah. And the people of Israel who were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. No Passover like it had been kept in Israel since the days of Samuel the prophet. None of the kings of Israel had kept such a Passover as was kept by Josiah. And all the priests and Levites and all Judah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of King Josiah, this Passover was kept. So Josiah would have been 26, I think, was it? Is that right, Brenda? Was he 8?
I'm sorry, what?
Josiah, how old was he when he went to...
When he started, he was 8 years old, I think.
Yep, so he would have been 26.
And so, yeah, at that time it would have been.
But it's pretty admirable that it says, ever since Samuel was alive, there hasn't been a Passover that was this great. And it was written down in the books of the law. I just wanted to add some context to that, because where we're at in Jeremiah, some of us are kind of...
Thank you for reading it.
Yeah, some of us are kind of Bible nerds, so we really hyper-focus on things like me. I hyper-focus on something when I'm studying it. And a lot of us maybe don't have the full context of what was going on, because Josiah dies shortly after this, and Jeremiah is alive to try to get Judah to turn their head back towards God as like a last-ditch effort, the last remaining tribe before they get taken into Babylonian captivity. So we're going to kick off here in Jeremiah chapter 2, and I believe Harold said verse 20. I don't know if anybody we can always have a little overlap. See, I don't think we were at 20. I think we're somewhere around 15. But I remember last week pretty sure we talked about verse 15, I think. So we'll just jump right in. And this is Jeremiah, God's saying to Jeremiah, "Is Israel a slave? Is he a homeborn servant? Why then has he become a prey? The lions have roared against him, and they have roared loudly. They made his land a waste. His cities are in ruin without inhabitant. Moreover, the men of Memphis and Tahpanhes has shaved the crown of your head. Have you not brought this upon yourself by forsaking the Lord your God when he led you in his way?" Any comments on that passage there? I mean, it comes right out. He's asking, obviously, God, just like when he's in the garden, he doesn't ask questions because he doesn't know the answer, right? Is Israel a slave? Right? Is he a homeborn servant? Why has Israel become the prey that's now hunted by the roaring lions, right? They've forsaken God. And
Why are they forsaking God?
Bingo. Yep, absolutely. And then we continue on with that thought too. And now what do you gain by going to Egypt? To drink the water of the Nile? Or what do you gain by going to Assyria? To drink the water of the Euphrates? Your evil will chastise you, and your apostasy will reprove you. So he's telling them what's what. He's saying, you're going to pay the price for all of this turning your back on God. And he's asking questions. Again, God doesn't need to know the answers to these questions. He already knows the answer. Right? Are you a homeborn servant? He's asking Israel. Israel still doesn't understand. They don't realize it. We get to chapter 3, and you see this. God's just calling them out. It's like you say you're facing me, but all I see is your back. And all these really powerful images that we get of going out to Judah. See, your evil will chastise you, and your apostasy will reprove you. Know and see that it is evil and bitter for you to forsake the Lord, your God. The fear of me is not in you, declares the Lord God of hosts. He's saying to all of his children, again, Dustin and I kind of touched on this morning, but he's speaking to people who are in a covenant relationship with him, his chosen people, right? The Old Testament. For long ago, I broke your yoke and burst your bonds, but you said, I will not serve. Yes, on every high hill and under every green tree, you bowed down like a whore. And this imagery is going to be throughout Jeremiah as time goes on. Because I'm sure somebody could add some context on under every green tree and then bowing down. What were they doing?
worshiping trees.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
fornicating.
Yep. And you know, oh, I forgot to use my mic here. But for God to say that, like a whore, like you've cheated, you've done away with the pure and healthy, normal relationship, and now you've gone to be with someone else. And he even illustrates that in chapter 3 as we get in here. It's very powerful. God is trying to explain to them through Jeremiah what you've done. You don't see what you've done. You don't see how much damage you've caused. You've literally left the husband and went to the other and tried to come back. And they're not even trying to come back. And if they were, they'd be defiled. Right? It would be ruined. That's what he talks about the land.
He's trying to illustrate what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you look at even just in Exodus, right? He calls them stiff-necked people, right? He says, with a mighty arm and an outstretched hand, I pulled you out of Egypt. You still won't turn your head. And this is right after they saw the parting of the Red Sea. They got guided by a pillar of fire, and they're like, let's make some golden idols. And it's foolish of us to jump in here and just pass this off like we would do that, like we wouldn't pick something over God. So Jeremiah's I enjoy studying this as a group. Yet, in verse 21, I planted you a choice vine, wholly of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? And we get that really pretty picture in the Gospel of John, right? Where Jesus says, if you're going to be with me, you need to be plugged in. You need to abide in me, right? Plug into the vine. You don't go and grow your own vine somewhere else and become wild. You have to stay plugged in to the source. And even God's talking to this with Israel. It's really beautiful to look at Old Testament, New Testament, and see the continuation. He's always been asking for the same thing, but he has a different relationship with people. And that's one of the things we talked about this morning, is that you can quote Ezekiel to try to, whatever you're trying to do with that Ezekiel quote, Ezekiel's talking to the Israelites. Just like when Jesus is talking to the apostles, and he says, I call you friends. I can't remember, it's in John, I think, or Matthew. One of the Gospels is in there, and he's talking directly to the apostles. That teaching is for the apostles. Just like this teaching here is for Israel. Any comments on that or feedback? Brenda, yeah.
The seed they planted that was pure, that goes back to Abraham and how Abraham left his family that worship idols in order to worship only God and then go to the promised land that God had promised them. And so the seed was Abraham. I mean, the seed was seed of Abraham. But that Abraham raised Isaac and then Jacob and Esau and then the patriarchs. They raised them to follow God and not idols. And so that's why Abraham, and so when we talk about that they have adulterated, that the seed was perfect to start out with, but they have changed it. They have left Abraham, I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm. They have ignored the covenant relationship that Abraham had with God, because before Abraham we had no Israelites. Right? Yeah.
All God ever really asked of anyone was their loyalty.
He seeked after the people's hearts the whole time.
I can hear
Loyalty.
royalty.
God was seeking loyalty. Yep.
God seeks loyalty.
In their heart.
Very good.
And in verse 22, I like this imagery, right? This is more modern day. Though you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, the stain of your guilt is still before me, declares the Lord God. And he's like, you can take the world's hottest shower, and you're not going to wash off what you've done among the other nations and bowed down to the graven idols and worship things made by your own hands. How can you say, I'm not unclean? I've not gone after the Baals. Look at your way in the valley. Know what you have done. A restless young camel running here and there. A wild donkey used to the wilderness, in her heat sniffing the wind. Who can restrain her lust? None who seeks her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. And that's very powerful imagery. I don't think any of us grew up around camels. Maybe some donkeys, I don't know. But no camels. But I don't know, has anybody been somewhere and ridden a camel? I've never ridden a camel. You've never even seen a camel.
Sounds like a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
No, but I've seen enough of David's hunting videos to realize that you can call in a male elk by pretending to be a female elk in heat, and the male elk will pretty much ignore every danger and walk right into a gunshot or an arrow.
And that image right there is painted by the donkey, right?
I do know that if you are rude to an animal, that'll spit in your face.
Spitting. What else spits? Peacocks?
Llamas or alpacas. Alpacas. They will spit at you.
Verse 25. Keep your feet from going unshod, and your throat from thirst. But you said it's hopeless, for I have loved foreigners, and after them I will go. As a thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, their prophets, who say to a tree, "You are my father," and to a stone, "You gave me birth." For they've turned their back to me and not their face. But in the time of their trouble they say, "Arise and save us." So there again is that imagery, right? And he even names out everybody. He names them out. Your kings, your officials, your priests, your prophets. No one's safe from this declaration of Israel, right? He's saying, you literally talk to trees and say, "You're my father." See how crazy that sounds to us nowadays? We don't do that. Never, right? We don't idolize things over God's precepts. To a stone, "You gave me birth," right? It just sounds silly. It sounds silly, but that's what they were doing. Absolutely. Through their worship, through their lives, through their adultery. We could study that whole, we could go through Elijah and Elisha and Jezebel and all the prophets of Baal being destroyed and what that worship looked like. We study that for probably a couple months if we wanted to.
People even created temples for their gods.
Mm-hmm.
But are we much different? I mean, how many newspapers carry horoscopes? That somehow the planets and the stars are going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do that day. And millions of people follow their horoscopes.
Or Mother the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the older gods like Thor or Zeus. Many people still believe in them.
Yeah. We could study that too. We just actually talked about that in Job chapter 38. God says, "Who controls the ravens?" I do. And this is before Norse mythology even existed. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of years before. So cool. It's like he knew it was going to come. Who controls the lightning? God talks about it in Job 38. Pretty cool. And you're like, did he know about the Greek gods were coming? I have imagined he probably made statements like that to point out how powerful he was before people even worshiped these
What about the female
gods.
gods? Does he have those?
What was that? I'm sorry?
What about the female goddesses?
There's nothing in there about female goddesses in Job chapter 38. But God's talking about how he masters all of the elements, and he names out all these different things that people worship later on. I just thought it was really powerful.
If you want to nerd out, if you look at the 10 plagues of Egypt, each of them were something that one of the gods of Egypt controlled.
Yep,
And God shows that he actually controlled it.
yep, darkness, locusts, yeah,
Blood.
yep. It's not coincidental, I don't think.
No.
Nothing is
Verse 28, "But where are your gods that you made for yourself? Let them arise, if they can save you." Right? It's like a rock's going to stand up and defend for you. That tree's going to fall down and save you. In your time of trouble, for as many as your cities are your gods, O Judah. Why do you contend with me? You have all transgressed against me, declares the Lord. And he goes to explain the things that have happened in his attempts to turn them back. In vain I struck your children. You took no correction. Your own sword devoured your prophets like a ravening lion. And you, O generation, behold the words of the Lord. Have I been a wilderness to Israel, or a land of thick darkness? Why do my people say, "We are free. We will come no more to you"? Can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. That's such a rhetorical question. He's like, have I been a wasteland? Have I been a completely dark place? You can't come find me? Right? The choicest vine is really powerful imagery. How well you direct your course to seek love, so that even to wicked women you have taught your ways. Also on your skirts is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. You do not find him breaking in, yet in spite of all of these things you say, I am innocent. Surely his anger is turned from me. Behold, I will bring you to judgment for saying, I have not sinned. I'm sure we could read into that passage pretty deeply. I'm sure there's something in there, the imagery, the skirt and the blood. I'm sure there's some imagery there about God and children. I'm sure there's something there. I don't know what it is, but maybe somebody could expound on that if they have any knowledge of it. But and they say, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. It's not me. I haven't sinned. It's not us. No.
Just like the golden calf jumped out of the fire, like a golden calf. Just jumped out.
It wasn't us. We didn't make it. It just appeared. We didn't sin. How much, verse 36, how much you go about changing your way. You shall be put to shame by Egypt, as you were put to shame by Assyria. For it, too, you will come away with your hands on your head. For the Lord has rejected those in whom you trust, and you will not prosper by them.
You know, Jordan, I just sat here thinking about verse 35. I pass judgment on you because you say I have not sinned. I wonder if we fall into that. I mean, do we really call the little things we do sins? And do we pass them off? Does God pass judgment on us not because we sin, but because we try and say they're not sins?
I absolutely think so. First John makes that very clear, right? And the sin he picks on in 1 John is if you hate your brother, right? But it's one of those things you could villainize anybody. I preached on it 2 weeks ago. You can make anybody the villain. But you can't do that and be correct in your walk with God. You can't be in grace, hating someone else. You can't walk in the light. You can't have a covenant relationship with Jesus Christ and hate someone else. I think the same way. We can minimize slander, lying, you name it. Envy, deceit. I don't know. Some of us have probably been rebuked pretty hardly before when we made a mistake. You know, when I said something, I could think, what did I say? It was Saul promising his daughter to whoever killed Goliath. And I was like, I don't think David knew about that beforehand. And somebody's like, brought me the Bible and was like, actually, he did. I'm like, oh, I was wrong. Okay, my bad. I will make sure not to teach that the other way around again. But again, it's a reproof, the correction, the willingness to be correctable as Christians. You can call that a sin. There's no way I'm right. There's no coming to the table to discuss, right? But I think identity crisis would be a good way to sum up maybe some of those feelings. I don't know if anyone else still shares that feeling, Dennis.
You were talking about the idea just now of ignorance, that is simply not knowing something. But there's the kind where you got your fingers poked in your ear and you don't want to hear it type ignorance. That's way more sinful. That's one God really hates. People that are uninformed, He's got a certain amount of mercy and gives them more chances. But these ones here, it said there in verse 30, they killed their prophets. And that's repeated in the New Testament. They killed apostles and prophets both. That's the idea. They had their fingers in their ears. They did not want to hear. It wasn't like they were innocent and they did something bad and didn't realize they were doing it. They made it a point to not know. The sword's point.
I won't pick on Dustin. Dustin's braver than me sharing some things on Facebook sometimes. But he shared something last night. It said, believe God, obey God. And this guy starts arguing on Facebook. And it's like, I don't have the emotional energy to do this on Facebook, but I was just like, how do you argue with that simple illustration? Well, you read this Bible and come up with that conclusion. I don't understand. You have something?
What of the ill? Per se, someone with schizophrenia, how would they be judged?
I don't think we have a concrete answer for that, but I think God judges much similarly to Dennis said. Those people that don't have a full understanding of goodness, you know? I mean, in Jewish culture, what was it, 13? You're a man, right? But people were treated as children before that. I think that there's a level. I don't have a 100% answer for you, Haley, but I think God has mercy on those and compassion. Brenda might have something to say.
Well, I was just thinking about Paul, is that he persecuted Christians thinking that he was doing God's will. And then Christ showed him that that was not his will, that he was doing wrong. And he showed him the light. And then he turned around to do what was right. But if he had not turned around, then he would have been doing it with all knowledge. Paul himself said he did it ignorantly because he didn't understand that Jesus was the Christ. He thought Jesus was a fake. And so he did it ignorantly until he saw that Jesus really was the true Christ. But he did it ignorantly, but he was still held responsible, even though he was still doing it, until he saw the light and changed his ways. But he did do it ignorantly, and so many things people do ignorantly, but it's not because it's not that they don't know that it's against God. What they're doing is they're justified in their own eyes, and so they think that what they're doing is okay. And so to them, they're ignorant because they haven't learned that is not okay yet.
I think that comes around to the expression I used 2 weeks ago, but the fullness of the gospel, the understanding of the entirety, right? Because you can sit there and say, I half know maybe about something or form an opinion, but it could be wrong. It could be wrong. Yeah, Haley.
Sorry, but what if it's like, what if your family believes in it and it's put in your mind since you were young?
Mm-hmm.
What if you're grown up on the prospect? Do you still get the judgment?
I don't think anybody escapes judgment. I don't think that. I think the best parable to illustrate what you're asking is Lazarus and the rich man, right? Because Lazarus is suffering, and he's diseased, and he's poor. The rich man, they both die at the same time, right? And it says Lazarus wakes up in the bosom of Abraham, and the rich man wakes up in turmoil, and they're separated, right? And the rich man says, please, let me go back and try to convince my brothers, right? I think that's a good illustration. And I don't think it matters about our past and people who have gone on, but it matters with the choice we have. And I think the choice is, God reveals that to you, I think, as you go along your life, right? I don't think you can haphazardly live your life and seek truth and not find God. That's my belief, personally. I don't know if that answers your question.
Doesn't he even see the stars and
Bingo.
talk about God?
At some point, you have to look outside and acknowledge creation and acknowledge this is not coincidental. We're not exactly the perfect distance from the sun so we don't get baked alive or froze to death, right? There's no way that can be coincidental. It couldn't have come out of nothing. It's not possible. You have to at least acknowledge intelligent design. You have to acknowledge that, or it's just lunacy. Nothing turned into something. But that's just I'll get off my soapbox. Brenda, did you have something?
I think about when they crucified Christ, they thought they were doing what was right. They didn't understand until the sermon and Pentecost, then they found out what they had done, and then they was really pricked in their heart at that point. Then they realized what they had done, but they did not realize it until then, but they were still guilty even though they didn't realize what they were doing. And what they were doing was basically what they had been ordered to do. And so it was passing the buck around to everybody, blaming everybody. But what I wanted to say is that a lot of times idolatry, we think of idolatry as worshiping a figure or a tree or worshiping something or stars or whatever. But in Colossians chapter 3, it says that sexual immorality, the greed, evil desires, all of that is idolatry. All of it is actually idolatry. We are worshiping ourselves. We are doing things our own way and not God's way. And so that makes it idolatry because we're putting ourselves above God. We're making ourselves God, saying we know what's best for us. And the same thing can be said for Saul when Samuel told him to annihilate all of the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15, I believe. Something like that. 1 Samuel 15. So Samuel told Saul to get rid of all the Amalekites, and he saved some of the animals and the king.
Yep.
And Samuel said that the disobedience was idolatry. We don't think of that. We think of only worshiping and bowing down to things. We don't understand that when we disobey, we're putting ourselves above God, and that is making ourselves God. So that's idolatry.
And if I remember right, I'm going to look this up so I don't misquote myself.
Do you want 1 Samuel, because I've got it?
Yeah, we got it.
Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. 1 Samuel 15:22.
In Colossians 3, if you can. It would be about, maybe like verse 5 or so, I don't know. I hear it, so I don't know how long it takes.
And then just to add a little context on that 1 Samuel 15:24, I was looking for this exact thing. Saul says to Samuel, I've sinned. I've transgressed the commandment of the Lord in your words because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. He was trying to please probably the ranking men, right? Save the animals, but at least we can kill them and eat them, or sell them, right? Or bring them home to the wife and kids.
I did everything you told me to.
Yeah. Yep. Did you have Colossians 3, Terry?
Yeah,
Okay.
3:5. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry.
But that's one thing I think we don't seem to understand idolatry. So when we disobey God, we're putting ourselves above God. And that's what I wanted to bring home was that is what, no matter what our choices are, we have a choice to follow God or follow ourselves.
Yep. Thank you for that. It's a very good illustration. The prophet Samuel and David, or it was King Saul. We'll continue on in chapter 3 here. I reckon we still got 15 minutes or so. This is I'll put the PG warning on this one. I read this in the kitchen last night when I was studying, and Kevin's like, what did Dad just say? Because there's some big words in here, right? You just say the W word? I'm like, yeah, I did. I was reading the Bible. If a man divorces his wife and she goes from him and becomes another man's wife, will he return to her? Would that land not be greatly polluted? Right? When a man splits and a woman is with another man, it's not the same. That's very clear in the text. You've played the whore with many lovers, and would you return to me? God's saying, why would I return to you when you've gone and committed adultery with other gods? You've turned your back on me. Lift up your eyes to the bare heights and see. Where have you not been ravished? God's saying, how have you not turned away from me in every possible way? There's nothing that's sacred anymore with you guys. By the waysides you sat awaiting lovers like an Arab in the wilderness. You've polluted the land with your vile whoredom. Therefore the showers have been withheld, and the spring rain has not come. Yet you have the forehead of a whore, and you refuse to be ashamed. Anybody expound on the forehead comment? I heard you guys ask that.
NIV says, yet you have the brazen look of a prostitute.
Countenance, maybe? We could look at concordance and come back to that next week. The refusal to be ashamed. Have you not just now called to me? My father, you are a friend of my youth. Will he be angry forever? Will he be indignant to the end? Behold, you have spoken, but you have done all the evil that you could. Let me get a little bit more here, a little bit different, kind of a different thought change here in verse 6. The Lord said to me in the days of King Josiah, right? So there's the context of King Josiah was still alive. Have you seen what she did, that faithless one, Israel? How she went up on every high hill and under every green tree? I like that. It's not, they went up once or twice. They did it everywhere. Everywhere that could be done, they did it, right? And I thought, after she's done all this, she will return to me. But she did not return. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. She saw that for all of the adulteries of the faithless one, Israel, I had sent her away with a decree of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear. But she too went and played the whore. And this is God is explaining his judgment on the other tribes of Israel right here, the 10, right? He's saying they didn't pay attention. I don't know if anyone wants to add some context to that, but he's saying, what are they doing over there? That's it. I'm going to give them the decree of divorce, right? Babylonians come, take everybody away, put them in forced labor. Lost where I was here. There we go. Your sister. She too went and played the whore because she took a whoredom lightly. She polluted the land, committing adultery with stone and tree. Yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah did not return to me with her whole heart, but in pretense, declares the Lord. And the Lord said to me, faithless Israel has shown herself more righteous than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words to the north, and say, return, faithless Israel, declares the Lord. I will not look on you in anger, for I am merciful, declares the Lord. I will not be angry forever. Only acknowledge your guilt, that you rebelled against the Lord your God, and scattered your favors among foreigners under every green tree, that you have not obeyed my voice. And here's a proof text right here. Old Testament says, just verse 13, only acknowledge your guilt, and you're good, right? That's not correct. That doesn't apply to us, right? That applies to Israel, right? Specifically the northern tribe here, the textual study. You've not obeyed my voice, declares the Lord. Return, O faithless children, declares the Lord, for I am your master. I will take you, one from a city and two from a family, and I will bring you to Zion. He's offering an out, right?
Jordan,
Yeah.
you made the point that it says only acknowledge your guilt. And that's true in 13, and in 14 it says return, faithless people. So you can acknowledge your guilt, but then you have to do something.
You got to do something.
Yeah.
That's right. That's how covenant relationships work. God makes a promise and then he makes a covenant, right? Making the covenant offers. In the example of Abram, in God's covenant with Abraham, same guy, right? And then we started this Jeremiah journey, and I thought it was really cool because it's like a smoking cauldron from the north. And it's like, what is that literally hearkening back to? It's hearkening back to God's original promise to Abraham. That's how God represented himself, as a smoking cauldron. And the covenant were each side. Abram walked through it with God. And that's going right back to that commitment and acknowledgement. It's easy to step over that and not catch it. How are we doing on time? We got time. Any comments or feedback? I don't want to gloss over this too quickly. Brian's like, oh, is it? Yeah, Brenda.
He'd already punished Israel, and Judah could not see that. That Judah could only see the things that they wanted to see. They thought that Israel was being punished probably out of God's vengeful nature instead of out of his love and trying to get them to all to come back to him. They probably didn't see it correction that way. But we we do the same thing. I get upset because Judah could not learn from Israel, but we can't learn either. We will go to other religious organizations. We will go to other people. We'll go to the internet, but we won't go to the Bible. I mean, we don't turn back to the Bible. We'll go to people instead of the Bible. To me, we're a lot like Judah, is that we can see that looks easier that way than what going to the Bible is.
I think that comes around to identity crisis. That's at least what's bouncing around between the walls of this guy's head. Who are we as a body? Right? What are we going to believe? How are we going to apply the scripture? Are we going to seek after the Bible? We're going to seek after the way we've always done it. You have an opportunity. Everybody has that choice, right? As a group, as a body, as a church. What do we believe? Do we believe this full-heartedly? Is Matthew 18 hard? I would say so. I would say so. We'll continue on here. We got a little bit of time. In verse 15, and I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. And when you've multiplied and been fruitful in the land, in those days, declares the Lord, they shall no more say, the ark of the covenant of the Lord. It shall not come to mind or be remembered or missed. It shall not be made again. At that time Jerusalem will be called the throne of the Lord, and all nations shall gather to it in the presence of the Lord in Jerusalem. And they shall no more stubbornly follow their own evil heart. In those days the house of Judah shall join the house of Israel, and together they shall come from the land of the north to the land that I give your fathers for heritage. It's a big, big statement there. And the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord will not come to mind or be remembered. And he also pointed out that all people will come to Jerusalem. It's pretty powerful. I said, how would I set you among my sons and give you a pleasant land, a heritage most beautiful of all nations? And I thought you would call me my father and would not turn from following me. Surely as a treacherous wife leaves her husband, so you have been treacherous to me, O house of Israel, declares the Lord. A voice on the bare heights is heard, the weeping and pleading of Israel's sons, because they have perverted their way. They have forgotten the Lord their God. Return, O faithless sons. I will heal your faithlessness. Behold, we come to you, for you are the Lord our God. Truly the hills are a delusion, the orgies on the mountains. Truly in the Lord our God, in our salvation of Israel. But from our youth the shameful thing has devoured for all which our fathers labored. Their flocks, their herds, their sons and daughters. Let us lie down in our shame, and let our dishonor cover us, for we have sinned against the Lord our God. We've said to our fathers, from our youth even to this day, and we have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God. We'll probably end there, maybe a little early if we do. Any comments or feedback? That's a big, heavy section. Sure. Uh-huh. Is this touchscreen?
No.
Okay. I'm spoiled. So the word that was the forehead like a whore, interesting. We'll have to look at this word a little deeper. It's got a lot of usages. We can come back to that next week. But I think it just means the appearance of someone who's in that profession. We used to say growing up, a lady of the night. Any more questions or feedback, comments? Any questions about where Jeremiah is at on his timeline? I attempted to make a little bit of that clearer. I feel like we kind of struggled to get that off the ground first there, but it's very clear we're in the year of King Josiah's reign. And there's still a chance to say Judah. we know how the story ends, but Jeremiah is still pleading and urging and trying to turn their necks to Israel. Yep, we are at 4:1, are we? Yep, 4:1. We made some progress. I mean, I want to study Jeremiah as much as the next guy, but I don't want to be in Jeremiah for a a year. It's up to you guys, but we could always change topic midway through, but. Yep. We'll go ahead and break for worship here and start out soon. Thank you. Yeah. Well, Harold told me when we left. I didn't. Well, I worked with
That's okay.
I like to do things.
You're next door, in fact. That's okay.
How is Brenda?
About 400 yards.
That's okay. That's the star.
Can't do that. I need to wear color.